A stray dog blocked a school bus from leaving, and what the driver discovered under the seats shocked everyone. In the span of just one afternoon, a mysterious backpack hidden beneath the bus seats would uncover a heartbreaking story of loss, ignite an entire community into action, and reunite two souls who thought they'd never see each other again. This is a story about the power of love, loyalty, and second chances. Stay with us as we reveal how one dog's desperate act changed everything. It was a crisp autumn afternoon at Maplewood Elementary. The kind of day where the sun hung low in the sky, casting golden light across the playground and painting the brick walls of the school in warm amber hues. The air carried that distinctive scent of fall, a mixture of dried leaves, cool wind, and the faint aroma of freshly mowed grass from the morning maintenance crew. Inside the school, the final bell had just rung, sending waves of excited children pouring out of their classrooms like water breaking through a dam, their voices echoing through the hallways with unbridled enthusiasm. Mr. Thompson, the school bus driver, had been doing this job for 17 years. 17 long, rewarding years of early mornings, afternoon routes, and the responsibility of safely transporting hundreds of children across the town of Maplewood. He knew every route like the back of his hand, every stop marked in his memory, every child's name etched into his heart. He was the kind of man who remembered which kids got car-sick on the winding roads near Maple Street, which ones needed extra time and patience to climb aboard, and which ones would fall asleep before the first turn, their heads bobbing gently against the window. His bus was his kingdom. The yellow exterior, though weathered by years of sun and rain, gleamed with pride. Inside, the seats were worn but clean, and Mr. Thompson had even added a few personal touches. A small air freshener shaped like a pine tree, a radio that played soft music during the quieter afternoon drives, and a first aid kit mounted carefully on the wall behind his seat. He took his job seriously. These weren't just children. They were someone's sons and daughters, someone's siblings, someone's responsibility. Today felt like any other day. It was a Tuesday, unremarkable and predictable in the way that made Mr. Thompson's job feel secure and routine. He had arrived at Maplewood Elementary at 2:45 p.m., exactly 15 minutes before dismissal, just as he did every single day. He had parked the bus in its designated spot in the circular driveway, checked his mirrors one more time, and waited for the flood of children to begin. Now, as the last few stragglers made their way onto the bus, Mr. Thompson sat in the driver's seat, methodically checking his mirrors, left, center, right, counting heads as the children filed on with their backpacks and lunchboxes. Their voices filled the air with chatter and laughter, creating a symphony of youthful energy. Stories about difficult math tests, playground drama involving friendship circles, and excited whispers about weekend plans filled the bus with life and warmth. It was the soundtrack of his job, one he'd grown to love over the past 17 years, even on the days when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him. The children settled into their usual seats. Sarah, a quiet third grader, always sat in the third row by the window. Marcus and James, best friends, claimed the fourth row and immediately started playing a handheld video game. Little Emma, only in kindergarten, sat near the front where Mr. Thompson could keep an eye on her. Everyone had their place, their routine, their comfort zone. Mr. Thompson smiled warmly to himself as he prepared to turn the key in the ignition. Another successful day at Maplewood Elementary, another safe ride home for 32 children. Nothing could go wrong. The route was familiar, the weather was clear, and all the children were accounted for. He had made this same drive hundreds of times without incident. His record was spotless, his reputation impeccable. He was a professional, and today was just another day in his long career of service. His hand reached for the ignition key, and he could already picture the route in his mind. Down Elm Street, right on Maple Avenue, left on Oak Drive, and then the residential streets where he would drop off each child one by one, watching them safely into their homes or to waiting parents. It was a routine he could perform with his eyes closed. But then, in that split second before he actually turned the key and started the engine, something caught his eye. Something unexpected. Something that made his hand freeze in mid-motion. A dog, not just any dog, a scruffy, matted creature with fur that hadn't seen proper grooming in months, maybe longer. The animal's coat was a patchwork of brown and gray, matted and tangled in places, with ribs clearly visible through the thin fur. This was Rusty, a stray who had been wandering the streets of Maplewood for the better part of a year, surviving on scraps of food left behind by kind strangers. The occasional meal from the local diner's back door, and whatever sustenance he could find in the town's dumpsters and alleyways. The dog had become something of a local fixture, spotted occasionally near the park or behind the grocery store, but never in a way that caused alarm. Most people felt a pang of sympathy when they saw him. But life moved on, and Rusty remained a background character in the town's daily narrative. But right now, standing directly in front of the school bus, blocking its path completely, Rusty was impossible to ignore. The animal's eyes were wide and intense, almost pleading, filled with a desperation that Mr. Thompson had never seen in a dog before. It was as if those eyes were trying to communicate something urgent, something that transcended the usual language barrier between humans and animals. This wasn't the look of a dog seeking food or attention. This was the look of a creature with a mission, driven by something primal and powerful. Without any warning, without even a moment of hesitation, Rusty began to bark. Not a casual warning bark, but frantic, desperate barks that echoed across the entire parking lot, reverberating off the brick walls of the school building. The barks were sharp and insistent, each one seeming to carry weight and urgency. The dog paced back and forth in front of the bus in an agitated manner, his movements jerky and urgent, refusing to move, refusing to give ground. It was as if his very life depended on blocking this vehicle from leaving this spot at this exact moment in time. The children's laughter died instantly, cut off mid-sentence as if someone had flipped a switch. The cheerful atmosphere that had filled the bus just moments before evaporated in an instant. "What's wrong with him?" one child shouted, pressing his face against the window for a better look. "Is he okay?" another cried out, genuine concern evident in her young voice. "Why is he barking like that?" a third child asked, fear creeping into their tone. The atmosphere inside the bus shifted dramatically in the span of mere seconds. Excitement and anticipation transformed into confusion. Curiosity mixed with concern. The comfortable routine that Mr. Thompson had relied on for 17 years suddenly felt fragile and uncertain. Mr. Thompson's calm demeanor, the steady confidence that had carried him through thousands of bus rides, wavered for the first time. He realized with absolute certainty that this was no ordinary situation. This was something different, something unprecedented in his long career as a bus driver. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles turning white from the pressure. His heart began to race, pounding against his ribs like a drum. A bead of sweat formed on his forehead despite the cool autumn air. What was this dog trying to do? Why was he so desperate, so determined to block the bus? And more importantly, why did it feel deep in his gut? In that instinctive part of him that he had learned to trust over the years, that this moment mattered in ways he couldn't yet understand? Why did he feel like something significant was happening, something that would ripple outward and change things. As Mr. Thompson stared at the frantic dog blocking his path, refusing to budge despite the size difference between himself and the massive yellow vehicle, a chill ran down his spine. The kind of chill that made the hair on the back of his neck stand on end. Something was wrong. Terribly, desperately wrong. This wasn't just a stray dog looking for food or attention from the children on the bus. This was an animal on a mission, driven by purpose and determination. And whatever that mission was, it had brought him to this exact spot, at this exact moment, in front of this exact bus, on this exact day. Mr. Thompson took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. He unbuckled his seatbelt with deliberate movements and stood up from his seat. The children pressed their faces against the windows, watching in stunned silence as their trusted driver stepped toward the door. Some looked frightened, others looked curious. All of them sensed that something important was about to happen. He had no idea what he was about to discover. But Mr. Thompson had no idea that stepping out of that bus would lead him to uncover a mystery that had been hidden in plain sight all along. A mystery buried beneath the very seats where these children sat every day. A mystery that would change the lives of everyone on that bus forever, and ripple outward to touch the entire community of Maplewood in ways they could never have anticipated. Mr. Thompson's shoes hit the asphalt of the parking lot with a soft thud, the sound muffled by the thick layer of fallen leaves that had accumulated near the bus parking area. The autumn air was crisp and cool against his weathered face, carrying with it the earthy scent of decomposing leaves and the faint smell of diesel fuel from the bus engines. Behind him, through the large windows of the bus, he could see the faces of 32 children pressed against the glass like eager spectators at a sporting event, their eyes wide with curiosity and concern. He could feel their gazes following his every movement as he approached the frantic dog, their collective attention creating an almost palpable pressure on his shoulders. The dog continued to bark with an intensity that seemed almost unnatural. Rusty's voice was hoarse from exertion, yet he showed no signs of stopping. The animal's entire body trembled with an urgency that transcended simple hunger or the desire for attention. Every muscle in the dog's frame seemed to vibrate with purpose and desperation. "Easy, boy," Mr. Thompson called out softly, his voice calm and reassuring, despite the nervous flutter in his chest that felt like 1,000 butterflies trapped in a cage. "Easy now. What's the matter with you? What's got you so worked up?" His tone was gentle, the same voice he used when speaking to frightened children on their first day riding the bus. He had learned over the years that animals, like children, responded better to calm, measured tones than to sharp commands or aggressive posturing. Rusty didn't back down. If anything, the dog's barking intensified, becoming more frantic, more desperate, more insistent. The animal's entire body language screamed urgency. His paws scratched at the ground, leaving small marks in the asphalt. His eyes locked onto Mr. Thompson's with an intensity that was almost unsettling, almost human in its desperation to communicate something vital and urgent. It was as if the dog was trying to convey a message of life or death importance. A message that couldn't wait another second, that couldn't be delayed or postponed for any reason. The dog's behavior was so unusual, so completely out of the ordinary, that it triggered something primal in Mr. Thompson's instincts. Mr. Thompson had always considered himself an animal lover, someone who understood and respected the creatures that shared the world with humans. He had a dog at home, a gentle and loving golden retriever named Max, a 9-year-old companion who had been with him through thick and thin. Over the years, he had learned how to read canine behavior. how to interpret the subtle signals that dogs use to communicate their needs and emotions. He understood the difference between a territorial bark and a playful one, between fear and aggression, between contentment and anxiety. But this was different. This was something he had never encountered before in all his years of dog ownership and interaction. This wasn't aggression or defensive behavior. This wasn't fear or territorial marking. This was desperation, mixed with determination, as if Rusty was trying to convey a message of paramount importance. A message that involved not just the dog himself, but something far larger and more significant. Okay, Mr. Thompson said, taking a slow, deliberate step closer to the dog. His movements were careful and measured, designed not to startle the already agitated animal. I'm not going anywhere. Let me see what's wrong. Tell me what's bothering you, boy. As he moved nearer to the dog, getting within a few feet of the frantic creature, Rusty suddenly stopped barking. The sudden silence was almost jarring, more unsettling than the frantic barks had been just moments before. It was as if someone had flipped a switch, cutting off the sound abruptly. The absence of noise created a vacuum that seemed to amplify every other sound. The rustling of leaves in the wind, the distant hum of traffic on the main road, the soft breathing of 32 children watching from inside the bus. The dog's body language shifted dramatically. Instead of continuing to block the bus and bark frantically, Rusty began to move with purpose and direction. He paced toward the side of the bus with urgent, jerky movements, then back toward Mr. Thompson, then toward the bus again, as if trying to lead him somewhere specific, as if trying to guide him toward something he needed to see or understand. Do you want me to follow you? Mr. Thompson asked, though he knew the dog couldn't answer in words. He was thinking out loud, trying to make sense of the situation, trying to understand what this animal was trying to communicate. Rusty barked once, sharply and distinctly, a single bark that seemed to serve as confirmation. The dog then began moving toward the front of the bus with renewed energy. Mr. Thompson followed, his curiosity now completely overriding his caution, his professional hesitation giving way to genuine concern about what might be wrong. The dog led him around to the driver's side door, then suddenly veered toward the passenger side of the bus, circling around with an almost frenzied energy that suggested extreme agitation. Rusty's movements were erratic yet purposeful, as if the dog was trying to draw Mr. Thompson's attention to something specific, but was struggling to communicate exactly what that something was. Mr. Thompson's mind raced with possibilities, each one more troubling than the last. What could possibly be so important? What had driven this stray dog to such desperation? Had Rusty been hit by a car and needed help? Was the dog trying to lead him to another injured animal? Or was there something else entirely, something he couldn't yet comprehend? Then, as if struck by sudden inspiration, a thought occurred to him, a thought that made his blood run cold. What if something was wrong inside the bus itself? What if one of the children had gotten hurt while he was inside? What if there was an emergency, some kind of medical situation that he had missed during his pre-departure check? His heart rate accelerated dramatically, pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. He quickly climbed back onto the bus, taking the steps 2 at a time, his movements no longer careful and measured, but urgent and rapid. His eyes scanned the interior frantically, sweeping from front to back, checking every seat, every child, looking for signs of distress or injury. Is everyone okay? Did anyone get hurt? He called out, his voice tinged with genuine alarm. Does anyone need medical attention? Is anyone sick or injured? The children shook their heads in unison. confusion and concern written across their young faces. Some looked frightened by the sudden change in Mr. Thompson's demeanor. Others looked curious, as if trying to understand what had prompted such urgency. "We're fine, Mr. Thompson," Sarah called out from her usual seat by the window, her young voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. "We don't know what's wrong with the dog. He just started barking and wouldn't stop." "Nobody's hurt," Marcus added from the fourth row. "We're all okay." Mr. Thompson's eyes continued to sweep across the bus, checking each child methodically, verifying that each one was accounted for and unharmed. He counted heads silently, matching them against his mental roster of regular passengers. Everyone appeared to be present and accounted for. Everyone looked physically unharmed. So what was Rusty trying to tell him? What was so urgent, so desperate? Then his gaze fell to the floor, and everything changed. There, partially visible beneath the fourth row of seats, the row where Marcus and James usually sat playing their handheld video games, was something that didn't belong. Something dark and rectangular. Something that looked distinctly like a backpack, but one that appeared to be deliberately hidden, shoved far back under the seats, tucked into the shadows where it wouldn't be immediately visible to a casual observer. Mr. Thompson's brow furrowed deeply, creating lines across his forehead. A backpack. That wasn't unusual in itself. Children left items on the bus all the time: pencil cases, lunch boxes, jackets, homework assignments. It was a regular occurrence that Mr. Thompson had grown accustomed to over his 17 years of driving. But there was something about this particular backpack that made him pause. Something that triggered an alarm bell in the back of his mind. The backpack was positioned in a way that suggested it had been deliberately hidden, carefully placed and concealed. Not simply forgotten by a careless student who had accidentally left it behind. The way it was shoved far back under the seats, partially obscured by shadows and the angle of the bus seats, indicated intentional concealment rather than accidental abandonment. "Whose backpack is this?" he asked, his voice taking on a new tone of authority, the professional demeanor of someone who expected answers. The children exchanged confused glances, their eyes meeting each other's in silent communication. No one answered. The silence stretched out, becoming uncomfortable and heavy. I said, "Whose backpack is this?" Mr. Thompson repeated, more firmly this time, his patience beginning to wear thin. "Someone must know who it belongs to. Speak up." Still nothing but silence and shrugged shoulders. The children looked genuinely confused, as if they had no idea how the backpack had ended up under the seats. Some of them craned their necks to get a better look at the object in question, their curiosity piqued by Mr. Thompson's obvious concern. Mr. Thompson crouched down carefully, his knees cracking slightly with the effort, and reached under the seat. His fingers grasped the worn fabric of the backpack, which felt rough and slightly damp to the touch. He pulled it out carefully, noting how the zipper was partially open, revealing glimpses of what appeared to be children's clothing and papers inside. The backpack itself was old and worn, showing signs of heavy use, with faded colors and frayed seams. As he examined the backpack more closely, turning it over in his hands and studying it from different angles, his eyes fell upon a name tag sewn into the inner lining. The letters were faded from age and repeated washing, but still legible despite the passage of time. Sarah Mitchell. But that wasn't the name of the Sarah sitting in the third row by the window. Mr. Thompson knew all his students by name. He had been driving this route for years, building relationships with the children and their families, learning their names, their personalities, their quirks and habits. He prided himself on knowing every single child who regularly rode his bus. There was no Sarah Mitchell among his regular passengers. He was absolutely certain of that fact. A cold sensation began to creep up Mr. Thompson's spine, spreading like ice water through his veins. His hands trembled slightly as he carefully opened the backpack further, unzipping it completely to reveal its contents. Inside he found children's clothing, a small pink jacket that looked like it would fit a child no more than 7 or 8 years old, a pair of shoes that were far too small for any of the children currently on his bus, shoes that looked like they belonged to someone much younger and smaller. There were notebooks and textbooks, their pages filled with careful handwriting and colorful drawings. There were pencils and erasers, a small lunchbox decorated with cartoon characters, and at the very bottom of the backpack, a photograph in a cracked plastic frame. Mr. Thompson carefully extracted the photograph, handling it as if it were made of the most delicate glass. The photograph showed a young girl, no more than 7 or 8 years old, with bright red pigtails that stood out from her head like flames, and a gap-toothed smile that radiated pure, innocent joy. She was holding a stuffed rabbit, a white and pink creature with long ears, and standing in front of a birthday cake decorated with pink frosting and colorful candles. The cake was shaped like a castle, and the little girl's face was absolutely radiant with happiness. Beneath the photograph, someone had written in careful, childish handwriting, "Sarah's 8th birthday, 1 year ago. 1 year ago." Mr. Thompson's hands began to shake more noticeably now, trembling with a force he couldn't control. His mind raced through the possibilities, each one more troubling than the last. How had this backpack ended up under the seats of his bus? Whose was it really? And why had Rusty, a stray dog with no apparent connection to the school or the bus, been so desperately determined to prevent the bus from leaving? Why had the dog appeared at exactly this moment, as if guided by some invisible force? The implications were staggering. A backpack belonging to a child named Sarah Mitchell, hidden beneath the seats of his bus. A photograph of a little girl with red pigtails, dated 1 year ago. The desperate barking of a stray dog who seemed to know something important, something crucial. Outside the bus, visible through the windows, Rusty had stopped his frantic pacing. The dog sat down on the asphalt, his body language completely changed from the frantic desperation of moments before. The dog's eyes were fixed on Mr. Thompson through the window, watching him intently, as if waiting for him to understand, to comprehend the significance of what he had just discovered. The dog's gaze was steady and purposeful, almost as if Rusty was monitoring Mr. Thompson's reaction to see if he had finally understood the message. Mr. Thompson looked down at the photograph in his trembling hands, at the smiling face of a child he had never met, a child with red pigtails and a gap-toothed smile, a child whose belongings had been hidden beneath the seats of his bus for who knows how long. His professional composure, the calm demeanor he had maintained for 17 years of driving, began to crack under the weight of this discovery. His breathing became shallow and rapid. His heart pounded against his ribs like a hammer. Something terrible had happened. Something that involved this child, this backpack, and somehow, inexplicably, this stray dog who had appeared at just the right moment to prevent the bus from leaving. The dog had led him to this discovery, guided him to the hidden backpack, as if the animal had been waiting for this moment, as if Rusty had been trying to tell him something important all along. As Mr. Thompson stood there in the aisle of his bus, the backpack heavy in his hands, and the photograph of little Sarah Mitchell staring up at him with that innocent, gap-toothed smile frozen in time, he realized that his quiet, routine day had transformed into something far more complex and troubling. The mystery that Rusty had been so desperate to reveal was only just beginning to unfold, like the petals of a dark flower opening to reveal secrets that should have remained hidden. The children on the bus had fallen completely silent, sensing the gravity of the situation, understanding on some instinctive level that something significant and deeply troubling had just occurred. Even the youngest children, usually so full of energy and chatter, sat quietly in their seats, watching Mr. Thompson with wide, concerned eyes. And somewhere in the town of Maplewood, somewhere beyond the boundaries of this school parking lot, someone was missing a little girl named Sarah Mitchell. Someone was grieving. Someone was searching. And the answers to what had happened to her might be hidden somewhere in this backpack, somewhere in the mystery that this stray dog had been so desperately trying to reveal. Mr. Thompson carefully placed the backpack on the seat next to him, treating it with the respect and care one would give to a sacred relic. He looked at the photograph one more time, committing the image of Sarah Mitchell's face to his memory, making a silent promise that he would help find answers, that he would help bring this child home. Then he reached for his cell phone with shaking hands, knowing that the next call he made would set off a chain of events that would change everything. For him, for the children on his bus, and for the entire community of Maplewood. Mr. Thompson's fingers trembled as he pulled his cell phone from his shirt pocket, the device feeling heavier than usual in his hand. The phone was an older model, a simple flip phone that he had owned for the past 5 years, nothing fancy or complicated. He had always preferred simplicity and reliability over the latest technology. But right now, as he stared at the screen, he felt as though he were holding something far more significant than a mere communication device. The children on the bus had fallen into an eerie silence, a silence so complete and profound that it seemed to fill every corner of the vehicle, pressing down on everyone inside like a heavy blanket. The usual chatter, the laughter, the excited conversations about homework and playground adventures, all of it had vanished, replaced by a thick, uncomfortable quiet that spoke volumes about the gravity of the situation. Even the youngest children, usually so full of boundless energy and unable to sit still for more than a few minutes, remained perfectly motionless in their seats, their eyes fixed on Mr. Thompson with expressions that ranged from curiosity to concern to outright fear. Sarah, the third grader who always sat by the window, had pressed her face against the glass, her eyes following Mr. Thompson's movements. Marcus and James, the best friends who usually played video games during the entire ride, had put their handheld devices away, their attention completely focused on the unfolding drama. Even little Emma, the kindergartner who normally required constant attention and reminders to sit still, sat quietly in her seat near the front of the bus, her small hands folded in her lap, her eyes wide and solemn. Mr. Thompson took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart and steady his trembling hands. He had made thousands of phone calls in his life, but none of them had felt as important or consequential as this one. He knew instinctively that the call he was about to make would set off a chain reaction of events, a cascade of consequences that would ripple outward and touch countless lives. He opened his phone and stared at the keypad for a moment, his mind racing through the options. Should he call the police first? Should he contact the school principal? Should he call his supervisor at the bus company? The decision seemed overwhelming, the weight of responsibility pressing down on his shoulders like a physical force. In the end, he decided that the police were the appropriate choice. This was clearly a matter for law enforcement, a situation that required professional expertise and official investigation. Mr. Thompson had no doubt that what he had discovered, the backpack, the photograph, the name Sarah Mitchell, indicated something serious, something criminal, something that demanded immediate police attention. He dialed 911 with careful precision, his finger pressing each number deliberately. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a voice answered, professional and calm. 911, what's your emergency? A female dispatcher asked, her tone indicating that she had answered hundreds of such calls and was prepared for anything. Yes, hello, Mr. Thompson said, his voice sounding strange and unfamiliar to his own ears, hoarse from the emotion and stress he was experiencing. My name is Robert Thompson. I'm a school bus driver for Maplewood Elementary School, and I've just discovered something concerning. I'm not entirely sure if this constitutes an emergency, but I believe it might be related to a missing child. There was a pause on the other end of the line, a brief moment of silence that seemed to stretch on forever. When the dispatcher spoke, again her tone had changed, becoming more alert, more focused. A missing child, she repeated, her voice taking on new urgency. Can you provide more details? What is the child's name? When was the child reported missing? Mr. Thompson looked down at the backpack in his lap, at the photograph of little Sarah Mitchell with her red pigtails and gap-toothed smile. He took another deep breath before responding. The child's name is Sarah Mitchell, he said carefully. I don't know when she was reported missing, but I found a backpack with her name on it hidden under the seats of my bus. The backpack contains clothing, school materials, and a photograph of a little girl dated 1 year ago. I have no idea how it got there or what it means. But given the circumstances, I thought it was important to report it immediately. Another pause, longer this time. Mr. Thompson could hear the sound of rapid typing in the background, the dispatcher entering information into a computer system. Mr. Thompson, I'm going to connect you with Detective Sarah Chen from our Missing Persons Division, the dispatcher said. She will want to speak with you directly about what you found. Please hold the line. There was a click, and then a moment of silence filled with soft background music. Mr. Thompson waited, his eyes still fixed on the photograph of Sarah Mitchell. Around him, the children remained silent, watching him with expressions that ranged from curiosity to concern. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only a minute or two, another voice came on the line, this one deeper and more authoritative than the dispatcher's. Mr. Thompson, this is Detective Sarah Chen with the Maplewood Police Department. I understand you found something related to a missing child. Can you walk me through exactly what you discovered and where you found it? Mr. Thompson took a moment to collect his thoughts, then began to recount the events of the past few minutes in as much detail as he could provide. He described the stray dog blocking the bus, the desperate barking, the way Rusty had led him to discover the hidden backpack. He described the contents of the backpack, the name tag, the photograph, the date written beneath it. Detective Chen listened without interrupting, her silence encouraging him to continue. When he had finished his account, she spoke again. Mr. Thompson, this is very important. I need you to listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Sarah Mitchell was reported missing 14 months ago. She was 7 years old at the time of her disappearance. Her case has been one of our most active investigations, and we've had numerous leads and tips over the months, but nothing has ever panned out. This is the first concrete piece of evidence we've found in connection with her disappearance in over a year. Mr. Thompson felt his knees weaken at this revelation. 14 months. Over a year. A 7-year-old child missing for over a year, and this backpack, hidden beneath the seats of his bus, might be the first real clue in the entire investigation. What would you like me to do? Mr. Thompson asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "First, I need you to not touch the backpack any further," Detective Chen instructed. "I'm going to send officers to your location immediately to secure the backpack and begin a thorough investigation. In the meantime, I need you to keep all the children on the bus and make sure no one leaves. We may need to interview them to determine if anyone has any information about how the backpack came to be on the bus. Can you do that?" "Yes, of course," Mr. Thompson replied. "I'll keep everyone here until your officers arrive." "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Your quick thinking and prompt reporting may have just provided us with the breakthrough we've been waiting for. Officers are being dispatched to Maplewood Elementary right now. They should be there within 5 to 10 minutes. The line went dead. Mr. Thompson slowly lowered his phone, his mind reeling from the conversation he had just had. 14 months, a missing 7-year-old child, and somehow, inexplicably, her backpack had ended up on his bus, hidden beneath the seats, waiting to be discovered. He turned to face the children, who were all staring at him with expressions of concern and confusion. "All right, everyone," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil he was experiencing internally. "We're going to stay here on the bus for a little while longer. Some police officers are going to come talk to us about something important. I need everyone to remain calm and seated. If any of you know anything about this backpack or how it came to be on the bus, it's very important that you tell the officers the truth. Do you understand?" The children nodded solemnly, the gravity of the situation having impressed itself upon even the youngest among them. Mr. Thompson could see the fear in their eyes, the confusion, the uncertainty. He wished he could tell them that everything would be okay, that this was all just a misunderstanding. But he couldn't lie to them. Not now. Not when a child's life might depend on the truth. He looked back out the window and saw Rusty still sitting on the asphalt, watching the bus with those intense, purposeful eyes. The dog had accomplished what it had set out to do. The backpack had been discovered. The authorities had been called. The mystery was beginning to unravel. But as Mr. Thompson looked at the photograph of Sarah Mitchell one more time, at that innocent, gap-toothed smile, he couldn't help but wonder. Where was she now? Was she safe? Was she alive? And what did the presence of her backpack on his bus mean for the investigation? The questions swirled in his mind, like leaves caught in an autumn wind, unanswerable and troubling. But one thing was certain. The quiet, routine day at Maplewood Elementary had transformed into something far more significant, far more consequential, and the answers to the mystery of Sarah Mitchell's disappearance might finally be within reach. In the distance, Mr. Thompson heard the sound of sirens approaching, growing louder with each passing second. The police were coming. The investigation was beginning. And whatever secrets had been hidden beneath the seats of his bus for the past 14 months were about to be exposed to the light of day. The sirens grew louder with each passing second, their wailing cry cutting through the quiet autumn afternoon like a knife through silk. Mr. Thompson watched through the windshield as 2 police cruisers pulled into the parking lot of Maplewood Elementary School, their lights flashing in alternating patterns of red and blue that cast dancing shadows across the asphalt. The vehicles came to a halt near the bus with practiced precision, and within moments, 4 uniformed officers emerged, their movements efficient and purposeful. The first officer to approach the bus was a tall woman with sharp features and penetrating dark eyes that seemed to miss nothing. Detective Sarah Chen, Mr. Thompson assumed. Though she was dressed in plain clothes rather than a uniform, a simple dark blazer over a white blouse, practical black pants, and comfortable shoes designed for walking and standing for long periods. Her badge was clipped to her belt, and her hand rested naturally near the holster at her side, a gesture that spoke of years of professional training and experience. Behind her came 3 uniformed officers, their expressions serious and focused. One of them was carrying a large plastic evidence case, the kind Mr. Thompson had seen on television crime shows, designed to preserve and protect evidence that might be crucial to an investigation. Detective Chen approached the bus door, and Mr. Thompson quickly opened it, stepping aside to allow her to enter. The children fell completely silent as the detective climbed aboard, their eyes tracking her every movement with a mixture of fear and fascination. "Mr. Thompson?" Detective Chen asked, her voice calm and professional, though there was an undertone of urgency beneath her composed exterior. "Yes, that's me," Mr. Thompson replied, gesturing toward the backpack, which he had carefully placed on one of the front seats, away from the children. Detective Chen's eyes immediately fixed on the backpack, and even from across the small space of the bus, Mr. Thompson could see her entire body tense with recognition and intensity. She approached the backpack slowly, carefully, treating it with the reverence one might show to a sacred artifact. "This is it?" she asked, though it was clear from her tone that she already knew the answer. "Yes," Mr. Thompson confirmed. "I found it hidden under the 4th row of seats, partially concealed. I've only touched it minimally. I pulled it out and opened it enough to see the name tag and the photograph inside." Detective Chen nodded, her expression remaining neutral and professional. She pulled on a pair of latex gloves with a snap and began to examine the backpack more carefully, her trained eyes taking in every detail, every seam, every mark and stain. When she saw the photograph of Sarah Mitchell with her red pigtails and gap-toothed smile, something flickered across her face. A brief moment of emotion quickly suppressed and replaced by professional composure. "How long has this backpack been on your bus?" Detective Chen asked, not taking her eyes off the photograph. "I have no idea," Mr. Thompson admitted. "I don't remember seeing it before today, but I can't say with certainty when it was placed there. It's possible it's been under the seats for weeks or even months without me noticing. The space under the seats is difficult to see, and I don't regularly inspect that area during my normal bus checks." Detective Chen looked up from the backpack and studied Mr. Thompson's face carefully, as if trying to determine whether he was being truthful. After a moment, she seemed satisfied with what she saw. "Tell me about the dog," she said. "You mentioned in your phone call that a stray dog led you to discover the backpack. Can you describe what happened?" Mr. Thompson recounted the entire sequence of events. From the moment Rusty had blocked the bus door to the frantic barking to the way the dog had led him around the bus and ultimately back inside, where he had discovered the hidden backpack. He described Rusty's behavior in detail, the desperate urgency, the way the dog seemed to know exactly what he was trying to communicate. Detective Chen listened intently, her sharp eyes narrowing slightly as he spoke. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment, her mind clearly processing the information. "Where is this dog now?" she asked finally. Mr. Thompson pointed out the window toward the parking lot. Rusty was still sitting on the asphalt, watching the bus with those same intense, purposeful eyes. The dog hadn't moved, hadn't wandered away, hadn't lost interest. It was as if Rusty was waiting for something, as if the dog's mission wasn't yet complete. Detective Chen followed Mr. Thompson's gaze and studied the dog for a long moment. Her expression was thoughtful, almost contemplative. "That's unusual," she murmured. "Dogs don't typically involve themselves in situations like this unless there's a specific reason. Either this dog has some kind of connection to the missing child, or it stumbled upon the backpack and recognized that something was wrong. Either way, we need to investigate this animal further. She turned to one of the uniformed officers who had entered the bus behind her. "Officer Martinez, I want you to secure that dog and bring it to the station. We'll need to check for microchip identification and attempt to trace its origin. It's possible this animal has more information to provide than we realize." Officer Martinez nodded and immediately left the bus to approach Rusty. To everyone's surprise, the dog came willingly, as if it had been waiting for someone to take charge and guide it toward the next step in whatever mysterious mission it was on. The dog didn't resist or hesitate, but rather followed Officer Martinez toward one of the police cruisers with a calm, almost resigned acceptance. Detective Chen turned her attention back to the children on the bus, her gaze sweeping across their young faces with professional assessment. "I'm going to need to ask each of you some questions," she announced, her voice taking on a gentler tone, adjusted for her young audience. "But first, I want to know if any of you have ever seen this backpack before today. Has anyone noticed it on the bus at any time? Has anyone seen anyone placing something under the seats? Has anyone ever heard of a child named Sarah Mitchell?" The children exchanged uncertain glances, their young faces reflecting confusion and fear. One by one, they shook their heads. No one had seen the backpack before. No one had noticed anyone placing items under the seats. No one knew who Sarah Mitchell was. Detective Chen seemed unsurprised by their responses, though Mr. Thompson detected a flicker of disappointment in her eyes. She had been hoping for a breakthrough, a piece of information that might move the investigation forward. But the children, it seemed, had nothing to offer. "All right," Detective Chen said, pulling a small notebook from her jacket pocket. "I'm going to need to take statements from each of you individually. Mr. Thompson, I'd like to speak with you first in more detail. Then I'll interview the children one by one." Over the next hour, Detective Chen conducted a thorough interrogation of Mr. Thompson, asking him detailed questions about his daily routine, the children who rode his bus, any unusual occurrences or suspicious individuals he had noticed in recent weeks or months. She asked about his relationship with the school, his background, his criminal history. Standard questions designed to establish whether he might have any connection to the case. Mr. Thompson answered every question honestly and completely, understanding that he was, in a sense, a person of interest in the investigation, despite the fact that he was the one who had discovered the backpack and reported it to the police. Detective Chen was doing her job, following standard investigative protocol, and he respected her for her thoroughness. As Detective Chen interviewed him, the other officers began a systematic search of the bus, looking for any additional evidence that might be connected to Sarah Mitchell's disappearance. They photographed the area where the backpack had been hidden, took measurements, and collected trace evidence. Fibers, dust, anything that might provide clues about who had placed the backpack on the bus and when. One of the officers discovered something of interest beneath the fifth row of seats. A small, worn teddy bear, brown and faded, with one eye missing. The officer carefully placed it in an evidence bag, and Detective Chen examined it with the same careful attention she had given to the backpack. "This could be significant," she said quietly, more to herself than to anyone else. "If this belonged to Sarah Mitchell, it suggests that the backpack wasn't placed on the bus recently. A child who was missing for over a year would have likely had emotional attachments to comfort items like stuffed animals. The fact that both the backpack and this bear are here suggests a deliberate placement, not an accidental abandonment." After Detective Chen had finished interviewing Mr. Thompson, she began speaking with the children individually, taking each one to a private area of the bus where she could speak with them without the others overhearing. The interviews were gentle and age-appropriate, designed not to traumatize the young witnesses, but to extract any useful information they might possess. As the afternoon wore on, the sun began to sink lower on the horizon, casting long shadows across the parking lot. The school day had long since ended, and other buses had come and gone, picking up their passengers and departing for various neighborhoods throughout Maplewood. Mr. Thompson's bus, however, remained in place, cordoned off with yellow police tape, transformed from a simple mode of transportation into a crime scene investigation site. By the time Detective Chen had finished interviewing all the children, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She gathered her notes and evidence bags, her expression grave and thoughtful. "Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Thompson," she said formally. "Your discovery today may have provided us with the breakthrough we've been waiting for in the Sarah Mitchell case. I'm going to ask that you not discuss the details of what you found with anyone, not the school, not the media, not even your family. This is an active investigation, and we need to keep certain details confidential to ensure the integrity of our work." "Of course," Mr. Thompson agreed immediately. "Whatever you need. I just want to help find that little girl." Detective Chen nodded, and for just a moment, her professional composure slipped, revealing the human being beneath the badge. Her eyes showed genuine emotion, concern, determination, and a deep, abiding commitment to justice for the missing child. "So do I," she said quietly. "So do I." As the police officers left the bus, taking with them the backpack, the teddy bear, and all the other evidence they had collected, Mr. Thompson found himself alone, once again, in the quiet vehicle. The children had all been picked up by their parents, who had received calls from the school explaining that there had been a minor incident and that their children would be delayed. No details had been provided, no information about the missing child or the discovery that had been made. Mr. Thompson sat in the driver's seat, his hands resting on the steering wheel, his mind churning with thoughts and questions. Where had that backpack come from? Who had placed it on his bus, and why? What did it mean for the investigation into Sarah Mitchell's disappearance? And what about Rusty, that mysterious stray dog who had appeared at just the right moment to prevent the bus from leaving? As darkness fell over Maplewood, Mr. Thompson started the engine and began the drive home, his thoughts consumed by the mystery that had unfolded in the span of a single afternoon. The quiet, routine day had transformed into something far more significant, far more consequential. And somewhere out there, in the darkness of the night, the pieces of a 14-month-old mystery were finally beginning to come together. The following days passed in a blur for Mr. Thompson. The discovery of the backpack had turned his world upside down, shaking the comfortable routine he had established over the years. Each time he returned to the bus, he felt a heavy weight in the pit of his stomach, a constant reminder of the little girl who had gone missing and the mystery that surrounded her. Detective Sarah Chen had kept in touch, providing updates as the investigation progressed. The police had confirmed that the backpack and the teddy bear both belonged to Sarah Mitchell. The bear was a treasured possession of hers, one that she had been seen with in numerous family photographs before her disappearance. The connection sent shivers down Mr. Thompson's spine. It solidified the reality of the situation and made the urgency of the investigation all the more palpable. Despite the gravity of the situation, life in Maplewood continued as usual. The town was filled with the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Children playing in the parks, families preparing for the holidays, and the faint sound of laughter echoing in the streets. But for Mr. Thompson, the innocence of it all felt like a cruel contrast to the dark shadow hanging over the investigation. One evening, after finishing his last route of the day, Mr. Thompson sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, staring blankly at the newspaper spread out before him. The headlines were filled with updates about Sarah's case, each article more disturbing than the last. The community was rallying, holding vigils and searches, but the answers remained elusive. Conversations about the little girl filled the airwaves, and the pressure on the police department to solve the case intensified. He turned the page, and there it was, a photograph of Sarah Mitchell, her bright smile captured forever in time, a stark reminder of the innocence lost. The image tugged at his heartstrings, and he felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was somehow connected to this tragedy, that the discovery of the backpack was just the beginning of something much larger. As he sipped his coffee, he recalled the moments he had spent with Rusty, the dog who had led him to this discovery. Despite being a stray, there was something about Rusty that felt almost familiar, an instinctual bond that transcended words. Mr. Thompson wondered if the dog was still lingering around the school. Perhaps it had returned, waiting for him or for something else entirely. The next day, he decided to drive to the school early in the morning before the children arrived. He wanted to see if Rusty was still around. As he pulled into the parking lot, a wave of nostalgia washed over him. The air was crisp, and the leaves crunched underfoot as he stepped out of the bus. To his surprise, Rusty was waiting near the entrance, tail wagging and eyes bright with recognition. The dog bounded over to him, expressing a mixture of excitement and relief. Mr. Thompson knelt down, extending a hand to the dog. "Hey there, buddy," he said, a smile breaking through the weight of the past few days. "Looks like you've been waiting for me." Rusty circled around him, clearly happy to see him. Mr. Thompson grabbed a few dog treats from his pocket, having prepared for this moment. He tossed one to Rusty, who caught it midair with impressive agility. "I guess you're hungry," he chuckled, watching the dog devour the treat. As he stood there, a thought crossed his mind. What if Rusty could help him unravel more about Sarah's disappearance? The dog had led him to the backpack. Perhaps there were other clues nearby, places he hadn't thought to look. With a newfound sense of purpose, Mr. Thompson decided to take Rusty for a walk around the school grounds, a search for more answers. They walked together, exploring the familiar paths. Mr. Thompson felt a sense of calm wash over him as Rusty sniffed around, his nose to the ground, clearly in his element. The dog paused occasionally, looking back at Mr. Thompson as if checking in, and he felt a strange sense of partnership forming between them. As they rounded the back of the playground, Rusty suddenly stopped, his body tense. He sniffed intently at a cluster of bushes that bordered the edge of the schoolyard. His ears perked up. Mr. Thompson approached cautiously, curiosity piqued. "What did you find, boy?" he asked gently. Rusty began to dig at the ground with his paws, his excitement palpable. Mr. Thompson knelt beside him, pushing aside the leaves and dirt, revealing a small, weathered item buried within. A bracelet. It was simple, made of colorful beads, some of which were chipped and faded. He carefully lifted it from the ground, turning it over in his hands. "This looks like a child's bracelet," he mused aloud. "Could it belong to Sarah?" Rusty barked once, as if in agreement, his tail wagging enthusiastically. Mr. Thompson felt a rush of adrenaline. This could be another piece of the puzzle. He quickly pocketed the bracelet, determined to bring it to Detective Chen. After a few more minutes of searching, Mr. Thompson and Rusty returned to the bus, feeling energized by the morning's discoveries. He immediately called Detective Chen, who agreed to meet him at the school to collect the new evidence. Within the hour, the detective arrived, her demeanor professional yet approachable. Mr. Thompson wasted no time in showing her the bracelet he had found. "I think I discovered this near the bushes by the playground," he explained. "I'm not sure if it belongs to Sarah, but it seems like it could be significant." Detective Chen examined the bracelet closely, her brow furrowing as she scrutinized it for any identifying marks. "This is interesting," she said, her voice thoughtful. "We'll need to check with Sarah's family to see if they recognize it. It could help establish a timeline or lead us to other clues." As they spoke, Rusty wandered a few feet away, sniffing the ground with purpose. Mr. Thompson watched the dog, hoping that Rusty might lead them to something else. Suddenly, Rusty darted off, his nose low to the ground. "Rusty!" Mr. Thompson called, jogging after him. Detective Chen followed closely, intrigued by the dog's sudden burst of energy. Rusty led them to the edge of the school property, where the forest began. The trees loomed tall and dark, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. The dog stopped at the base of a large oak tree, scratching at the bark and sniffing excitedly. "What is it, boy?" Mr. Thompson asked, kneeling beside Rusty. The dog barked once, looking back at Mr. Thompson as if urging him to investigate further. Detective Chen joined them, her eyes scanning the area. "Let's take a closer look," she said, positioning herself next to the tree. Together, they examined the base, brushing away leaves and debris. As they dug through the underbrush, Mr. Thompson's heart raced. What if they found something? What if Rusty had led them to another clue regarding Sarah's case? After a few moments of searching, Detective Chen uncovered something half buried in the dirt. A small, weathered notebook, its pages crumpled and stained with age. She carefully lifted it out, her expression shifting to one of concentration. "This is definitely something we need to keep," she said, flipping through the pages. "It could contain important information." Mr. Thompson felt a surge of hope. "Do you think it could be connected to Sarah?" Detective Chen nodded, her mind clearly racing with possibilities. "It's too early to tell, but we'll have it analyzed. If there are any writings or drawings inside, it might give us insight into what happened." They spent the next hour combing through the area, but no further discoveries were made. As the sun began to rise higher in the sky, Mr. Thompson felt a renewed sense of purpose. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, and with Rusty's help, they were uncovering secrets that had remained buried for far too long. After Detective Chen departed, promising to keep Mr. Thompson updated on the progress of the investigation, he took a moment to reflect on how far he had come since that fateful day when he discovered the backpack. The fear and uncertainty that had gripped him were slowly giving way to determination. He was no longer just a school bus driver. He was part of something much larger, a quest for justice, a search for truth, and a commitment to finding Sarah Mitchell. As he prepared to leave the school grounds, Rusty trotted beside him, tail wagging and eyes bright with energy. Mr. Thompson smiled down at the dog, grateful for the unexpected partnership that had formed between them. Together, they were determined to uncover the truth and bring closure to a family that had suffered for far too long. With a renewed spirit, Mr. Thompson climbed into the bus, Rusty jumping in beside him. As he turned the key in the ignition, he realized that they were just getting started. The investigation was far from over, and he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.